Abilities were introduced to Pokemon in Generation 3, and they have been a mainstay to the competitive scene ever since. They provide passive effects that normally wouldn't be possible otherwise, and they are essential to the competitive viability of many Pokemon. With the addition of hidden abilities in Gen 5, most Pokemon have access to 2 or 3 abilities total, but there's usually one of them that stands out to be the best and most useful. However, in this video, I will be discussing the best Pokemon that function with multiple abilities. Whether that be because they are versatile enough to benefit from either ability, the abilities provide different enough things to allow for the Pokemon to fill multiple roles, or the abilities provide similar enough things for either of them to be good. I will be considering the use of these abilities in the context of Scarlet and Violet VGC, mostly from the last 3 VGC formats, Regs F, G, and H, and since some of the abilities I'll be mentioning involve doubles specific strategies, I don't think that a lot of them will apply to singles. I'd still be interested to hear what Pokemon use multiple abilities in singles formats though, so feel free to leave those suggestions in the comments. I'll be excluding any Pokemon that have different abilities due to them having an alternate form that has a different ability, as I don't really feel that changing forms fits within the spirit of what I'm trying to discuss here. I will also be excluding Pokemon that have multiple bad abilities, because that wouldn't make for very interesting entries. With all that being said, let's look at Pokemon that see use with multiple abilities in Scarlet and Violet VGC. Starting off, we have Hisuian Goodra using both Shell Armor and Sap Sipper. Shell Armor protects the user from critical hits, and Sap Sipper makes the user immune to Grass-type moves, and grants a +1 attack boost when hit with a Grass-type move. Normally, Shell Armor is seen as a very underwhelming ability, as blocking critical hits is okay, and usually just really situational. On Hisuian Goodra though, it actually fits quite nicely, as its typical role is as a defensive wall with a fantastic defensive typing that sets up with Shelter to raise its defense. It doesn't have access to any moves that raise its special defense, but that's not really an issue since its base special defense is already sky high. Normally, how you would bypass a Pokemon with a lot of defense boosts is by landing a critical hit, but if Goodra has Shell Armor, you can't do that. This is especially good in metas where Urshifu is present, as both of its forms have signature moves that always land critical hits, but will not against Goodra. In metas without Urshifu like Reg H, Sap Sipper is usually the preferred ability, as really any ability that grants a type immunity is very strong and will see use. Hisuian Goodra is quad resistant to grass already, but a grass type immunity is more so good for being immune to Amoonguss's Spore and Lilligant's Sleep Powder, and when combined with a Terra type that's normally weak to grass like water, you'll only end up with one weakness to electric. Next, we have Maushold using both Friend Guard and Technician. Friend Guard reduces the damage that an ally takes by 25%, and Technician boosts the power of moves with a base power of 60 and below by 50%. Maushold is one of the only Pokemon on this list whose role completely changes by what ability it uses. If you've seen my The Best Pokemon on Offense and Defense video, you'll know that Maushold has an offensive and defensive mode that is boosted significantly from the abilities it gets. If you want to go on offense, you'd use Technician. When boosted by Technician, Population Bomb aided by the Wide Lens deals massive damage. The way that Technician works with multi-hit moves is that it boosts the power of each individual hit, so a 20 base power move that can hit up to 10 times is now a 30 base power move that can hit up to 10 times. With the Wide Lens, the 90% accuracy becomes 99% accuracy, which maximizes the chance that you'll hit 10 times. If you want to go on defense, you'd use Friend Guard. With Maushold's speed and wide array of disrupting moves like Taunt, Encore, Thunder Wave, Charm, Fake Tears, Baby Doll Eyes, and Follow Me, it has many tools to help keep its ally alive. Without Technician and Population Bomb, it can still deal consistent damage with Super Fang, a move that always deals half of the target's current HP. It really just depends on what role you want Maushold to fill on a team, but the Friend Guard supporting variant is probably the more common one. Next, we have Basculegion Male using both Swift Swim and Adaptability. Swift Swim doubles the user's speed in the rain, and Adaptability increases the user's stab modifier from 1.5 to 2. When used in conjunction with a rain setter, Swift Swim is the obvious choice of an ability, as being able to double your speed right away is very useful. As a water type, Basculegion will have its stab water moves boosted even further with rain, making its wave crashes not only go before its opponent, but also hit very hard when used on a Choice Band set. Basculegion also gets access to the very powerful Ghost-type move Last Respects, which has a starting base power of 50 and increases by another 50 every time an ally has fainted. This won't be boosted by Rain, but it honestly doesn't need to, as it can get up to 200 base power in a VGC game and 300 base power in a singles game, assuming you're not using Revival Blessing. On teams without a Rain setter, Adaptability is the preferred ability. If you don't have Rain setup, Swift Swim is completely useless, so you'd much rather have the increased damage that Adaptability provides, taking advantage of the 2 stab moves Basculegion uses that I mentioned earlier, Wave Crash and Last Respects. Basculegion also gets stab priority with Aqua Jet and pivoting with Flip Turn, where it will usually use the Choice Scarf for speed control. Next, we have Archaludon using both Stamina and Sturdy. Stamina increases the user's defense by 1 stage every time it's hit with an attack, and Sturdy makes the user immune to one-hit KO moves and allows the user to survive any single hit with 1 HP that would have otherwise knocked them out if they were at full HP when hit. Archaludon is in a very similar position to Basculegion, where the way its ability, item, and moveset kit is built is highly dependent on if it will be used on a team with a Rain setter. Without a Rain setter, Archaludon's signature move Electro Shot takes 2 turns to attack, so these sets will usually hold the Power Herb to bypass that charging turn. Since you now can't hold the Assault Vest, this makes you more vulnerable to special attacking moves with Archaludon's low special defense, so Sturdy is good for increased survivability. If you do have a Rain setter, then you have no need for a Power Herb since Electro Shot's charging turn will be bypassed from the Rain, so your item slot is now free to hold the Assault Vest, an item that is great for increased survivability in a different way to account for Archaludon's low special defense, making Stamina the better ability option. Stamina is also great for increased damage on Body Press, a physical attacking move that deals damage based on the user's defense stat, which accounts for the defense boost from Stamina. Archaludon even sees use with its third ability, Stalwart, which allows it to ignore redirection, which is a very niche pick, but it is worth mentioning. Next, we have Dragonite using both Inner Focus and Multiscale. Inner Focus makes the user immune to flinching and the attack drop caused by Intimidate, and Multiscale halves the damage the user takes if they are at full HP. Despite Inner Focus only preventing 2 very specific things, those 2 things are very common in the VGC scene, and being able to ignore them is extremely valuable. Fake Out is the main move that causes flinching, and with mons like Incineroar, Rillaboom, Sneasler, Iron Hands, and Smeargle all over the place, being unaffected by one of their main disrupting moves goes a long way. For being immune to Intimidate, it's mostly valuable for getting around Incineroar, but also other Intimidators like Hisuian Arcanine, Landorus Therian, Salamence, and Gyarados. Choice Band is generally the preferred item on Inner Focus sets as it is not setup heavy and allows for immediate damage. Multiscale is great when using a more setup oriented Dragonite as it is pretty much guaranteed to live any single hit when combined with its great defenses. Scale Shot lowers defense but raises speed after use, and Dragon Dance raises speed and attack, which are great on loaded dice sets that allow for more consistency when using Scale Shot. What ability you go with really just depends on if you want a more immediately offensive Dragonite that's limited by 1 move from the Choice Band, or a more setup focused Dragonite that's not limited by 1 move since it's not holding a choice item. Next, we have Armarouge using both Flash Fire and Weak Armor. Flash Fire makes the user immune to Fire-type moves and grants a 50% boost to the user's Fire-type moves when hit with a Fire-type move, and Weak Armor lowers the user's defense by 1 stage and then raises speed by 2 stages when hit with a physical attack. Like some of the previous entries with Maushold and Archaludon, whichever ability Armarouge uses will typically determine what kind of mode it will run. Flash Fire Armarouge will typically be used on Trick Room teams in conjunction with Indeedee setting up Psychic Terrain and redirecting with Follow Me so that Armarouge can set up Trick Room. Terra Grass is a very common defensive Terra that takes advantage of Flash Fire, as Grass's fire weakness becomes an immunity. Life Orb is a common item for increased damage output, as well as Power Herb when using Meteor Beam. Weak Armor Armarouge will typically be used on a fast weakness policy set, and a common way of pulling that off is with Flip Turn Iron Bundle or U-Turn and Terastallization shenanigans with a whole bunch of different Pokemon. In closed team sheets, it can be quite the gamble to try and figure out what Armarouge set your opponent is running, and if you guess wrong, you're in for quite a ride. Lastly, we have Kommo-o using both Overcoat and Soundproof. Overcoat makes the user immune to powder and spore moves and damage from Sandstorm, and Soundproof makes the user immune to sound-based moves. Overcoat is essentially Safety Goggles the ability, and Safety Goggles is a very solid held item that many Pokemon use. It is mainly good to counter Amoonguss, as Amoonguss threatens its opponents by putting them to sleep with Spore and redirecting their attacks with Rage Powder. Other less common but still relevant users of Powder and Spore moves that are nice to be able to ignore are Rage Powder from Volcarona, Sinistcha, and Vivillon, and Sleep Powder from the Lilligants and Vivillon. Kommo-o's other ability, Soundproof, makes it immune to a different kind of move, sound-based moves. There are 33 sound-based moves in the game, and quite a few of them are relevant in the competitive scene. The main ones being Bug Buzz, Hyper Voice, Boom Burst, Perish Song, Psychic Noise, and Parting Shot. Bug Buzz is common on Volcarona, and although Kommo-o already resists Bug as a fighting type, any immunity is still good to have. Hyper Voice is very common, with Blood Moon Ursaluna, Farigiraf, Sylveon, and Primarina being the main users. Boom Burst is not too common, but it opens up the possibility of Kommo-o's partner using Boom Burst so that Kommo-o is unaffected. Perish Song is also not too common, but if your opponent relies on Perish Song, you can completely ignore it. Psychic Noise has been picking up in usage on some Psychic types like Farigiraf, which is great to be immune to as Kommo-o is normally weak to Psychic as a fighting type. And Parting Shot is common on Incineroar and sometimes used on Grimmsnarl. Like Archaludon, Kommo-o also sometimes sees use with 3 abilities, as it also gets Bulletproof, an ability that makes the user immune to Ball and Bomb moves, which again is a niche use, but is worth mentioning. And those are some of the best Pokemon in the Scarlet and Violet VGC competitive scene that see use with multiple abilities. Let me know if you disagree with any of my reasonings, or feel that I missed any. Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, the best way to do so is just by leaving a nice comment. I do read all comments and will try my best to respond to as many as I can. You can also click the join button and become a member, and I made the cost as low as possible at 99 cents USD. Members get a badge next to their name and early video access. Keep in mind that these videos will be releasing on my normal schedule for non-members, so please don't feel obligated at all to join unless you really want to support me and you are financially capable of doing so. Huge thanks to all my members. I really appreciate your continued support for the channel. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel this video deserves it, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.